Hey folks, in today's video I want to share with you a cool sidewalk that I built. And in the video I'm going to share with you some of my thoughts on a product that I use by AK Terrains. It's a product called Concrete, which is perfect for a sidewalk. Who wants a muddy sidewalk, right? Anyway, this product I want to share with you my thoughts and views on, you know, how it worked and how well and easy I was able to use it on this project. Another product I used, which is this blended turf builder. It's a little green little powder stuff you shake on there, and it helps you create little, you know, grassy looking stuff and weeds inside the little the lines of the sidewalk. Let me show you this sidewalk and show you what the turf builder is. It's this green stuff right here that you can see. And since I have this up here, let's take a look at this awesome looking sidewalk. I mean, once the camera focuses on there, this is a really, really cool product. Let me flip it around the right way here. There we go. I'm really happy with this product, and I'm really happy with the way that this sidewalk came out. You can see all the nice staining and painting that I did on here, scoring the lines in between each slab. It's really, really a nice looking sidewalk. I'm happy with it. And AK Terrains has not paid me to say any of this. They haven't given me anything free. Something I bought at the suggestion of a follower on Instagram. So I bought it, and I've had it for about a month. I just haven't used it yet, but glad I did. Great product. Watch the video, like and subscribe, and we'll holler at you later. Take care. All right, folks. Hey, we're going to build a sidewalk. We're not going to pour concrete. Thank goodness. That sidewalk would be terrible if I did. But we've got an old piece of scrap foam here. It's something from a job that I was doing a while back, and just didn't like the way this paint job and this thing came out. So I chucked the foam to the back of the studio and kept it for a project just like this. We're going to measure out... this is a 3-inch wide piece of foam, and I put it on the Proxxon cutter and I cut it. It comes standard 1 inch thick, and I cut that in half so that the actual thickness of it is a 1/2 inch. And I've looked on my phone and did a Google search, and I found some sidewalk designs that I really liked and I thought were simple. And it turns out, man, there is a ton of different names for types of sidewalks. And at any rate, the one that I chose to do was called a bluestone. And it's the one like this here in the picture, where you've got the pieces that run up along the curb, and then you've got some rectangular pieces inside. We're going to go kind of off of this design, not 2 squares deep though, but we're definitely going to put those long strips along the curb, and we're going to add a rectangular slab in the middle part of the walkway. And it helps to have a reference image when you're trying to do something like this, because you think, oh, it's just a sidewalk and it's a bunch of squares, but I can mess it up without a reference image. I can mess it up with a reference image, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, so we're marking out our curb section here, and what I'm doing is I'm going about, I think that's about a 1/2 inch by, each one is a 3-inch mark, and it's a 12-inch long piece of foam, 3 inches wide, 1/2 inch deep, or 1/2 inch thick. And so we're marking out the lines now to do the concrete slabs. And, you know, you're going to see here in just a little bit that I approach this the same way as I would do any other build, except that I'm using this AK Terrains product today. It's called the AK Terrains Concrete, and I'll link that in the video description below. And you're going to see here, when after I draw my lines for the slab walkways, you know, I proceed to do what I normally do and texture everything and use my wood burning tool, and, you know, take those marks that I made with the pencil and, you know, make them permanent with the wood burning tool, which is the way I normally approach any type of build. You know, I make my patterns, and then I make my lines and texture, and then I, you know, use black Mod Podge. You're going to see here that it's not necessary when using this product, this AK Terrains. The lines are that I'm putting in here with the wood burning tool are probably about 95% useless. I know now, but not to say that it's useless to build or to make these marks and have your reference image, because you're going to see we will need that later. But this product dries like concrete, man, like stucco. And so what you do is you end up actually scoring these lines after the product dries. No big deal. This kind of saved me a step, I guess, in a way, because I could still see the lines under the AK Terrain's product once it dried, and it just helped me, score the lines without having to put a ruler on top of the product. But text messages and oh boy, I tell you. Anyway, it's only right when I want to build something that all the text messaging and things come along. So we're going along the piece of foam here and just kind of doing what I normally do, adding texture and little potholes and curves and cracks and things like that. Which you're going to see later. We are just going to fill right in with AK Terrain's product, and they're not even going to be visible. But I wanted to show this part of the video anyway to you, because, when you're using a new product, you don't know. I mean, you can do a YouTube search and you can check it out and see how other people have used it. But, until you actually sit down and use it, you're not really familiar with it. And so, this is just a part of the learning curve. It's not like I wasted any time or anything. But this product does save you quite a bit of time. You'll see here, because you could skip this whole step right here. And it just saves a tremendous amount of time. And I'm super happy with the way this sidewalk came out. You'll see as we get down further into the video, but it's a really nice product for the money that it cost. And here I get out my rock jar and I'm going to town, man. This is what I do. I texture it, because after this texturing, I would normally get, like I say, my black Mod Podge. I would get my I would put that on there, let it dry, do some stippling and dry brush keeping all those textures in the sidewalk. And so, like I say, I'm just going through my process right here as I normally would. And it's great to keep extra pieces of foam all the time. Don't throw near your foam out. So let's get to the product here, AK Terrain's concrete. It's the consistency. It's not as thick as sheetrock mud, but it's thicker than like pancake mix. So it's a great product. What I'm using there is just some old cheap tools that I have for like clay work. They're just little plastic spatulas. You can use your debit card or some kind of rigid plastic, whatever you can use that's a spatula like to spread it around. It has I told you about the consistency of it. Now the texture of it is like a really fine grout. I really like this product. I bought it and I've had it for probably a month now and I haven't used it. and this was the perfect opportunity to do it. You can see there it comes kind of thick, but it spreads really super easy. And my first concern was, man, what if you were going to do how long will this last? Because it's not a big jar, and this is a 12-inch by 3-inch piece of foam. I thought, well, man, I would probably go through this fairly quickly. But honestly, once you start spreading it on there, you can go as thick as you want, I guess. I didn't need to go that thick because you can see it fills all those holes in, even the texture that I put in there with the rocks. It fills everything in beautifully. And you can spread it out fairly thin. You don't want to see any of the pink foam through the product. And keep in mind also, if you're going to later gouge out little holes and stuff for potholes and cracks, you're going to have to apply it a little bit thick. Not super thick. I mean, you might go like a 16th of an inch or something like that, or even less than a 32nd of an inch, maybe. I don't know, but you want it. It doesn't need to be that thick. I'm not putting any holes on the top of this, potholes on the top of this. So I went thick enough to cover and not see any pink foam show through, and just to cover everything up, but still be able to see some of the, all those curb lines and stuff that I used the wood burning tool to put in there. Another great thing about this product, I was wondering what I was going to do with that big gouge that was right there. This takes care of that. Sidewalks are uneven and there's tree roots growing under them and things like that. This will fill in, and you can totally fill it in and make it flush, or you can just fill it in and make it look like the sidewalk is uneven. And so that really was a cool feature of this product. You can use it like I say, to totally fill in the areas that are low and make them flush with the rest of the piece, or you can just fill them in to make them to cover the hole but leave the unevenness in there. And so that was really cool. So we're just spatula putting this on, and I'm not scraping it thin like squeegee scrape. I'm just lightly gliding the spatula over the top of it to bring down any swirls or ridges or any high spots that would not look like a sidewalk. I want it to be fairly smooth. And you could also add water to this a little bit and smooth it out also. But those little strings are from the wood burning. The little pieces of plastic string that or foam string that come off as I wood burn. But anyway, you can see how easy this stuff spreads, man. I mean, it just really does go on nicely and creates a nice, even looking surface. And too, the color of it is, really nice as well, right out of the jar. Okay, so here I cut a piece of MDF board because my thinking was that this might crack after it dried because it's a thin piece of foam and it's flexible. So I'm thinking, well, let's reinforce it with a little MDF board. I got to realizing that's not going to be necessary also because, first of all, it raises the height of the sidewalk, which I don't want. I wanted it at a 1/2 inch thick. And then not only that, you'll see the MDF board under the foam. So you'll have this nice looking sidewalk and then this brown looking MDF board, or whatever color you want to paint it, I guess. But it was just not a necessary step. I thought that this would, once it dried, that it might crack, but it didn't. And I'm sure if you just flexed the board, the piece of foam, put a bow in it, it's going to crack because the stuff does dry, rigid. But it's not necessary. It wasn't a necessary step to add the MDF board, and so you'll see that I ultimately didn't do it, which another part of the learning curve. It's okay to be constantly thinking about the next step and what you might need, or what might make the piece more solid or better or whatever. And I just thought the MDF board would be a good addition, but I'm glad I thought about it before I actually laid that glue down and put it on there, because I would have been mad. See, I cut it pretty and everything, and it fits, and then I got to thinking, you know what? I just don't want it. So that being said, usually if you're going to use this, you might put it on a thicker piece than a 1/2 inch piece of foam anyway, and so it's going to be firm enough, and it's not like I take these pieces and bend them and put them in different shapes, so I don't have to worry about it being cracked. So here what I'm showing you is I don't have a scoring tool, so I got a little screwdriver, and I just, with the bench grinder, I just put a little fine tip on there. And those lines that I wood burned in there earlier for the pattern for the sidewalk slabs, they still show through enough that I can just take my scoring tool and go back through them and open them up a little bit. Now the thing here is you have to let this dry. I let it dry probably for about 3 hours, and I think it says 3 hours on the bottle. And it's probably going to vary depending on how thick you put it or how thin you put it, and the temperature that you put it. So you don't have to push down hard on this to score the lines in it. And in matter of fact, if you did push down hard on it, you would probably add some cracks and stuff to the surface, which might not be a bad thing. But here, since I didn't apply it very thick, I didn't want to push down hard, because all that's going to do is drag it and make it look like a mess, and then it would show the pink foam through the score line. So I'm just passing real lightly through each line, taking a little bit of the concrete texture out of the patterns that I did, and it worked out nice anyway that I burnt the patterns in before. But I didn't have to. I could have did it at this point right here, got a ruler out with a pencil and did all the marking also. So I guess you can kind of go either way. If you're putting it on thick though, you probably want to save making the patterns till the end, but I think it's probably, whatever you want to do with that. But you could see the textures that I did with the rock and stuff, they're just not going to show through. And honestly, it looks better because I think that texturing this with the rock and making a sidewalk out of it, it would have turned more into a stone looking sidewalk than it would have a concrete sidewalk. And so I think I saved myself a little headache with that too. Generally, when you roll over something with one of the rocks that I use, it creates the patterns, and it's a more stone looking piece than it is concrete. This really just dries nicely, and it leaves a really nice texture on top. And I went so far as to even stipple with I took a grout sponge. I don't know if you know what it's not like a regular dish sponge, but a grout sponge is a really fine pour. It's got a lot of little small holes on it, and so it worked perfect for dabbing onto the wet product here before it dried, and giving it a little bit extra texture to the sidewalk itself. So anyway, we're going to take a brush and clean out some of these lines. This is where you want to make sure, double sure that this thing is dry, because if it's not and you go trying to score it, you're going to make a mess, or if you go trying to drag a brush through it, you're going to make a mess. So just make sure it's fully dry, and that's hard for me because I'm not always patient. So I push the limits. Anyway, but and there's another piece of scrap foam from the same board that I'm using to put this on to work with it. Those pieces of scrap foam are just great to always have around. You never know what you're going to use them for, so it's a great thing to keep all those pieces. And actually here too, it helped out to have a base under it to pin it down, because the foam sidewalk, is thin, and there's like a natural arc to it, and so being able to pin it down while I worked with it also helped out quite a bit. But you can see we got some great texture in this board, man. I mean, this looks really, really good right out of the bottle or jar. A little light sand on the edges of it just to knock down some of the parts that might be, uneven. But man, doesn't that look good? Not even being painted. I mean, I couldn't paint it to look like that. I really like it, and they have not sponsored me. They have not sent me anything free. I just bought this at the advice of a friend on Instagram, and I'm all for making everything I can myself, but if there is a product that will produce a better result than I can, then I'm all for it, in most cases, but I like to build with foam. I like to make most everything I can by hand. But something like this, man, I'm going to tell you, I'd have a tough time doing it by hand and making it come out, as good as this product made this turn out. Here, we're going through, I was kind of at a toss between how I wanted to paint this, or stain this, or wash this, because it's a texture I haven't used before, and I didn't know how well it would receive like liquids and stuff. So what I figured I would do was go through here and just use some of the Vallejo pigments and get in there with some black to begin with in the cracks. And you know, I didn't want to. I thought I could probably airbrush this, but honestly, I was too lazy to set up my airbrush just to paint this sidewalk, when I thought that I could probably get, you know, a better result with the pigments. And it worked out. You'll see it worked out great. I mean, I really like the way these pigments work anyway. You know, they always do a great job. When you put these on, the tooth of the product, the texture of the AK Terrain's concrete really does grab these pigments, and it gets in there nicely. So that's another thing that was a plus when using the pigments. I'm sure you could use the pigments. I'm sure, you know, in combination with airbrush, I'm sure you could just airbrush this if you wanted to. I'm sure you could go over this even with some, you know, acrylic paints if you wanted to, and just brush it on. It all depends on the look you're after. I was after more of a realistic look than, you know, than a too much of a cartoony look. But, you know, these pigments always do a great job when applied, you know, on the right types of you know, props and stuff. But so we're going through with a black just in some of these creases and corners and connecting points where I think that, you know, I want it to look grimy and dirty. We won't put all the stuff on the sidewalk that we see on real sidewalks, at least where I live we won't. But at any rate, so now I'm going to reach up here for another color of pigment to put down. I just have this kit of rust colored, it's a rust set from Vallejo. And I've got some browns and some oranges and blacks. So what I'm doing, I just grabbed a different brush. I'm going to start spreading this around with a really soft brush and making some various light and dark marks and things like that, where I think that grime might accumulate on a sidewalk, and kind of just start to begin to, you know, really color this up a little bit. But this is not, I mean, this is really a fun project. You know, I've been needing a sidewalk for a while, and I just hadn't built one. I've built some stone walkways and things like that, but this was a great opportunity to try out a new product and build a cool little prop that honestly just didn't even take long. The longest part of this was the dry time. You know, as with anything, usually it's the dry time. But I didn't want to put a heat gun on here like I normally do. I'm sure you probably could and speed it up, but I just walked away and did a couple other things and came back to it. No big deal. But you could see how nice these pigments, I mean, they get in there and they stay on this texture. It just pulls them right in, man. Really nice. And I did not do a thick coat of this product on the foam. It was a pretty thin coat, but you couldn't tell. I mean, if you look at it, it looks solid and thick and like sidewalk. So this part is entirely up to you, however you feel like you want to put your paints and stain it and put all the different rings and scrapes and whatever, you know, that you normally see on a sidewalk. There's another, I mean, you could even do like asphalt patches on there. You can just go crazy with it. There's so many cool looking sidewalk examples that I've seen, you know, on Google, that what happens is it's like when you go into the store and you want to buy shampoo. There's 475 different kinds of shampoo that do 900 different things. And it's like, oh my gosh, I just want shampoo. Well, same thing when you Google anything. It's 4 million kinds of searches results come back. It's just ridiculous. So but anyway, you know, you can really get some cool looking, put potholes and manholes and grating and different things in there to really make this, you know, different uneven squares of walkway, to just really make this thing really cool. What I put in there was AK Terrain. No, that's actually a Vallejo airbrush thinner. And so I wanted to try a couple of different things here. Let me explain. Vallejo recommends using the thinner on their pigments to set them in. And you can see here that that's it worked out really well. It spread them around, it set them in real nice. and it worked out great. There's also an AK Terrains mineral spirit thinner that I could probably have used also. But at any rate, we're going to go ahead and, I added some of that turf builder in here with a little watered down glue in the cracks where that container there on the MDF board, that's just watered down tacky glue. And we'll just spread it around in there. Did I eat some top ramen? Look at that. My daughter brought me top ramen, and I've got an empty bowl of it sitting there. Oh, my God.